For today's video, I'll be doing a tier list of every Premier League club's most recent transfer rumor at the moment. Some transfers will not be involved as they have been finalized today, such as Joachim Andersen to Crystal Palace, Jules Koundé to Chelsea, and Ben White to Arsenal, so those teams will have different rumors. For this tier list, the rankings will include, at the top, the will happen tier, then the should happen tier, then the should not happen tier, then the will not happen tier. For Arsenal, the transfer rumor at the moment is Aaron Ramsdale. Now, for Aaron Ramsdale, I think this should not happen. I think it's not in the will not happen tier because it could happen, but I don't think it should. Aaron Ramsdale is an English keeper that is 23 years old, who has a 70.7 save percentage last season, which is okay, but I don't think he should go to Arsenal as they have better and bigger transfers they need to make this summer. I think Bernd Leno is good enough to be their starting keeper this next year. I don't think Arsenal should purchase Aaron Ramsdale this summer. Next we have Aston Villa and Leon Bailey. This should happen. I don't think it will happen because I don't think they'll have the money for it, but Leon Bailey would be absolutely dominant in their side. He's a 23-year-old Jamaican right winger who would cost 35 million euros. This last season he scored 9 goals and had 8 assists in the Bundesliga and had a 3.33 dribbles completed per 90. He would dominate the Premier League. It would be awesome for them. I do not think it will happen, but it should happen. Brentford purchasing Joe Worrall. Now, Joe Worrall is a 24-year-old center back who has a 4 million euro market value, and I think this will not happen. I don't think they should purchase him. They don't really need him, and this is not a good move for them to make. Nathaniel Phillips to Brighton. This should happen. I don't necessarily think it will happen, just like the Leon Bailey transfer, but I think he would be a good replacement for Ben White. He's not as good on the ball as Ben White, but he is dominant in the air with his 6.05 aerials won per 90. He is 24 years old, but it would only cost 8 million euros. That would be great for them. Connor Roberts to Burnley. I think this also should happen. I think this is a good move for them. Burnley could use a right back of Connor Roberts' ability. He is great going forward and great in defense. He's a 25-year-old Welsh right back, and he would cost 4.5 million euros. Last season he scored 5 goals and had 7 assists for Swansea in the Championship, and I think this would be a good transfer for Burnley. ERLING HAALAND to Chelsea. I think this will not happen. I think it should happen, but it's just not going to happen because he is going to cost way too much. He is valued at 130 million euros, but he's going to cost up to 175 million euros. He's an excellent striker and could be the best in the world, scoring 37 goals last league season, but I do not think this will happen this summer. Odsonne Edouard to Crystal Palace. I think this should happen. Crystal Palace need to get younger and need to get more players, and Odsonne Edouard would be a great replacement for Christian Benteke. The 23-year-old striker will cost around 17 million euros, and that's a good price for him, and he will be a solid striker who last season scored 18 league goals. Dwight McNeil to Everton. I think this should not happen. I think Everton could do with a better move than Dwight McNeil, and McNeil should stay at Burnley. The 21-year-old English winger has a market value of 22 million euros, and I do not think this will happen, as Everton could use this money elsewhere. Noah Lang to Leeds. I think this will happen. Noah Lang is a young winger playing for Club Brugge in Belgium, who scored 14 goals and had 7 assists last season. The 22-year-old will cost 22 million euros, but Leeds could definitely afford him, and I think he would be a great move for them. Domenico Berardi to Leicester. This will not happen. I think Leicester is pretty much done in the transfer window, and I had to kind of give them a rumor, and this was the biggest rumor at the time. I don't think this is a necessarily bad move for Leicester, but it just will not happen because of his price and them already basically being done in the transfer window. JARROD BOWEN to Liverpool should not happen. This is a horrible move for Liverpool, as I think there are much better players at the winger position that they can develop than JARROD BOWEN. He's a pretty good player, but there are so many better options for his price at 30 million euros that they could get that would be better for them long term and current term. Last season he did score 8 goals and had 5 assists, but I think there are better options out there for them. Jack Grealish to Manchester City will happen. This move will 100% happen this summer, and it's not even a question. The 25-year-old English winger will cost 65 million euros, and that's definitely in Manchester City's price range. Last season he scored 6 goals and had 10 assists, and added that to 12.6 progressive carries per 90. He's insanely talented on the ball and a dominant passer. He's also a great goal scorer. He is perfect fit for Manchester City. Kieran Trippier to Manchester United should not happen. I do not think they necessarily need to spend the money here. I think they should save their money for an actual center midfielder instead of McTominay or Fred, but he is a good player and I understand the want for the move, but I just think that Aaron Wan-Bissaka holds it down well and they do not necessarily need someone like Trippier to be their backup. AXEL TUANZEBE to Newcastle will happen. I think this is a good move for him as he needs a new place to play. I think he would fit Newcastle pretty well, and he would only cost 8 million euros being 23 years old. He is somewhat talented and deserves a spot in the Premier League, but he needs a move away from Manchester United, and I think this move makes sense, even if it's on a loan or a full-on transfer. JED Spence to Norwich. This will not happen. This rumor doesn't make any sense unless Max Aarons is sold this summer, and I do not see that happening, as Max Aarons will probably start every match for Norwich. I think he's a good player with a lot of potential. The Torino fullback will not make a move to Norwich this summer. Isaac Hayden to Southampton should happen. I think this is a good move for him, as he needs a move away from Newcastle, and he is definitely talented enough to be on a Premier League roster, and Southampton could use a defensive midfielder with his acumen. Last season, he did have 2.13 interceptions per 90, which puts him in the upper 90th percentile in that stat. He would only cost 10 million euros, and that's a pretty good price for him. I think this move makes sense for Newcastle and for Southampton. Christian Romero to Tottenham will happen. This is an excellent move for Tottenham. Christian Romero is a very underrated but very talented center back from Atalanta. The 23-year-old will cost 35 million euros, and that is a perfect amount of money for him. Last season, he had 2.9 tackles per 90, which puts him in the 99th percentile across Europe. He's an excellent center back that definitely deserves a move to Tottenham, and Atalanta need to cash out on him right now. Morton Thorsby to Watford. I think this should happen. He's a very solid midfielder that is 25 years old and will cost 7 million euros. He's a solid player. He does really good at what he's supposed to do, and Watford could really use him in the middle of the park. Alfonso Areola to West Ham. I think this will happen. Lucas Fabianski is a solid enough keeper, but they could really use an upgrade at West Ham, and they haven't really spent their money that they got from the Europa League yet. I think this move makes sense. Alfonso Areola had played really well in the Premier League with Fulham, even though he had a horrible defense in front of him. I think he's a very good keeper and deserves a spot in the Premier League, and PSG are definitely going to look to sell him, as they have 2 new keepers. Dominik Livakovic to Wolves. This will also happen. This is a great move for him and Wolves. Wolves need a replacement for Rui Patricio as he left to go to Roma, and Livakovic is a very good keeper with an 83.7 save percentage last season. The 26-year-old will cost 15 million euros, and that is a good price for him and his ability.